Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Melissa Gray, and I'm with the National Aging and Disability Transportation Center. And I would like to welcome you to our Brown Bag webinar today featuring capacity builders. Looking forward to a wonderful presentation by our speaker today. I just wanted to start today by welcoming you and to go over a few webinar logistics. As you all know, you will be in listen-only mode during the presentation. This webinar is being recorded and will be sent along with the presentation slides after the webinar. Closed captioning is available. If you notice at the bottom of your screen, if you need to enable that, this webinar will be captioned today, so you are more than welcome to enable that feature. Questions can be submitted via the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So if you have any questions, and we welcome you to submit any questions even throughout the presentation, we will have a more formalized, facilitated Q&A discussion following our presenter. And then lastly, we recommend that you connect to your computer's audio to hear the media, as I will be showing a brief video that will introduce our speaker and the program. So again, welcome to the webinar. We'll have our video. At that point, we will have Brianna Smith, who will talk about the Capacity Builders Grant Project, and we will close out with questions and answers. So let me go and get this video queued up for everyone.
The vast area covered by capacity builders includes Navajo Nation and all 5,500 plus square miles of San Juan County. To meet the needs of its community, Capacity Builders has hired staff who speak the Navajo language and uses a variety of vehicles, from taxis to a transit bus called Big Bertha, to provide transportation in all parts of the county.
One of the biggest challenges here in a rural area is that there's not any transportation services. So what we need to do is find a way to get people served in our community going back and forth from the reservation, from rural areas, towns and cities into Farmington, which is the hub.
So they would call, asking us if we could take them to their appointments, and the biggest thing was they didn't have a lot of money to do it. The biggest challenge was trying to get more riders on the Native American side, because coming from the reservation, it's always harder to really believe that something's free.
Having NADTC allowed us to provide a dispatcher that both speaks Navajo language as well as English. We also have a Spanish-speaking person that comes in and speaks both as well. So having the interpreters come with us to these different facilities and chapter houses to speak has been able to allow us to reach more people.
A poll from the National Aging and Disability Transportation Center found that older adults and people with disabilities have difficulty finding a ride in their communities. This is due to a lack of affordable and accessible transportation options. In Farmington, where access to transportation is already limited, this issue is even more acute for older adults and people with disabilities who have low incomes. To address this issue, NADTC awarded a grant to Farmington's Capacity Builders. The Capacity Builders Challenge, providing curb-to-curb paratransit services to those living in its vast service area, which includes the Navajo Nation.
They always tell me their problems, and sometimes I'm on the phone with them for 30 minutes because I just let them go on, because I'm pretty sure they don't have nobody to talk to, but and they always tell me that we have no money for transportation.
Daniel is visually impaired. He was depending on friends and family for rides, but when he learned about the Capacity Builders program, that changed.
It helps me so much. Being a person of limited income, it doesn't cost me anything. I don't have to be scrounging around for change, coins, quarters, and it's just a lifesaver.
Rochelle Clark is unable to speak, and she uses a wheelchair, but that does not stop her from communicating. With help from capacity builders, she now uses a media device to reach out and get rides.
She said I can go places and meet up with my friends and family and go to my appointments. It opened the world for me.
Siri Kosa broke her hip, and that changed everything. Because of transportation costs and a limited income, Siri was going to the food bank once a month and trying to stretch that food to last.
I have only Social Security. I live below the poverty line. And so, if I use this ride, excuse me, it doesn't sound like much, but when you don't have much, $40 saved a month, I can eat a little more. I can go to the thrift store more. So economically, for me, it's a big help.
In addition to being able to get to the grocery store more than once a month, Siri was able to get to vital physical therapy appointments, which helped her avoid another surgery.
That's what NADTC has helped us do, is get out there and tell them that being in a wheelchair, being disabled, being elderly is not a death sentence. There are people out there that are willing to help.
With the funding provided by their NADTC grant, Capacity Builders has successfully developed a program that connects older adults and people with disabilities to the community through transportation.
Okay, and now I'd like to turn things over to Brianna Smith, who will talk about the Capacity Builders project. Brianna, you can go ahead and share your screen now.
All right, thank you. Get this going. Okay. So once again, my name is Brianna Smith, and I'm with the Northwest New Mexico Transportation Alliance project through Capacity Builders. Okay. And as you've seen on our wonderful video, I just love that to pieces, that a little bit about San Juan County. So you saw a little bit of what we look like, but this is going to show you a little bit of where we are on a map. If you look at the top left of your screen, you'll see Farmington with a little tiny asterisk there. And that is where our hub is. That is the city. Each little town that is surrounded around us is another town that we need to come into the hub. Farmington is the only city currently that has a level 4 trauma center. It has our facilities here for hospitals, grocery stores, grocery chain stores, I should say, as well, like a Walmart, a Target, things like that. So we needed to get people into town. We have anywhere between 30 miles to about 70 miles where we needed to get people of aging population as well as people with disabilities into town. And what we decided for our project is to cover an area of about 5,500 square miles. Okay. So what we did during our project, we were able to actually create a rural transportation option for the Navajo Nation and surrounding areas. And when I say that is, there's not a lot of actual rural transportation options here in town. There are some, but they were unreliable. We wanted to be the reliable source that you knew we were open the days that we said we were, during the hours we said we were going to be, and able to do those services. So that meant a lot in keeping consistency within our little community. We were originally started to do services for for ages 65 and up, and then anyone with a disability, whether it be children all the way up to seniors, anyone with disabilities. We were able to do a flyer distribution program because we are so rural. We really felt the need that we needed to get out there with flyer distribution. Later on, we tried to do a little bit more of PSAs over the radio ads and things like that, but flyer distribution you know, going old school still, it really did work because it was handed out from chapter houses. It was dispersed in laundromats, you know, just where our target community and target population were, that we were able to get these out. We also started a social media campaign, which was amazing because a lot of the caretakers, you know, are the younger generation and they are social media savvy. So we were able to meet a lot of those caretakers and let them know about our project. And thus, you know, we really grew. We had over 750 followers in that aspect. And it helped out, lots of shares in our postings from different, you know, partnerships within town that knew about our project. So that was amazing in itself. We also were able to look at different funding options for sustainability project on this, which we'll go into a little bit here further. And then one of the big things with our project is we wanted to target the population and provide these rides at no cost. So that was a big one. Okay, so during our project, we actually had our project going from May until October of 2019. We actually started implementation about 2 months into that. So we really had about a 3-month window where we were ready to roll, ready to take rides and open up and get that going. So in that 3-month period, we were able to provide just under 1,300 rides. Average ridership during those 3 months was right about 250. And we had pretty much almost a mix between of our demographics on disabled or elderly, and then who our target population was. I mean, our target population was really Native Americans coming from the Navajo Nation. But once we opened up, it was picking up from the Navajo Nation and coming into town. And when we learned that, we stopped at different towns and chapter houses and made a new hub to pick up at. We got other nationalities on board. So it was really interesting to see that demographic towards the end. But in 3 months, 1,300, it was amazing. We actually grew a little bit too fast that we didn't anticipate for. So what are we doing now after everything? Sustainability and the funding portion of this. So Capacity Builders was actually awarded the Access and Mobility Partnership Grant. So we are able to do that for the next 2 years. So we have 130K in our grant. We're able to continue on with this, as well as we've deviated a little bit to help gear towards more, not just going out to doctor's appointments and things like, or going out to grocery stores, but also adding in more doctor's appointments. Due to COVID right now, which I know is on everybody's mind, doctor's appointments have gone to telehealth. There's not a lot of real going out to facilities for appointments that are not necessary. So we're working around that. I'm sure like all of you guys are too, but we are definitely moving this going forward in doing not just doctor's appointments, but also still going to food banks right now, which are even more critical because there's not a lot of activity of really getting out of your house. Sustainability also is we have gone to the New Mexico Developmental Disabilities for the waiver program. So we've applied for that. We are still looking to see if we have gotten approval for that. And then it's a 24-month wait, and then COVID hits and people are all working from home and whatnot. So they have pushed that back, and I think it's actually up to 36 months now. So we are still on the waiting list for that. We've also went ahead and created another intent to apply for the 53, 10, and 11 funding for next year's fiscal year. So that is something that we're definitely going in. And then of course, current funding for is basically from volunteer drivers and then low cost fees from riders. So we did start this as a low cost to no cost pilot program, and then we have now had to, because of cost, go into a low fee. So we're talking about $8 round trip, and that will take you up to 70 miles. Okay, and then the Northwest New Mexico Transportation Alliance is and will continue. And the things that we wanted to continue with, problems, we saw problems in the community, and we had our community members tell us what they thought those problems were. So what we wanted to do was go back in and let them know, hey, let's find a solution. What can we do? One of the biggest one was providing curb to curb transportation, para transportation at that. So having a vehicle that was able to pick up wheelchair, able to help out members who had hip problems, and if you saw Siri in the video, being able to get her up on the lift. So those were very big things that we had to come across. Big Bertha, I love it. She, our vehicle there is able to fit up to 4 wheelchair access vehicles in there. And so that was a huge one for us. We also wanted to make sure that we were providing enough hours in the day to get everybody serviced, and then providing at least 3 full-time days that we can provide services to, and as well as hours of operation. So 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We do 3 12-hour days a week, and that's something that has filled us up quickly. And then language barriers. We needed to actually have somebody come in that was able to do, that was able to speak the native language, Navajo, as well as Spanish speaking, and going on from there. And then, like I said, target population, we wanted to also have some sort of fee associated with this. We do ask for an $8 round trip fee if they're coming from far away, so more than about 50 miles, and that just kind of helps us. So it's $4 one way. And that is a requested, it is not something that needs to be paid, but it is something that we request if you can. And it's just a bucket that, or not, I shouldn't say a bucket, but a money drop slot that if you choose to make your donation, it's on the bus. Okay, and one of the major things that we wanted to just continue with our partners in our community is our vision, Capacity Builders vision. And that's that all residents of San Juan County have affordable transportation options. And with those options, it's going to help support that healthy and that productive lifestyle that we want for anyone with disabilities and aged community. So that is my little spiel on this, and I thank you for taking the time to be with us today. And I think that I saw a question pop up.
Yeah, we've got several questions, so I'll go ahead and moderate this section so you don't have to look back and forth, Brianna. So our first question, first is a comment and then a question. Your program is wonderful. If you had advice for others as to what you would do differently if you were to do it all over again, what advice would you give?
Oh, that's a good one. Hindsight, right? Always 2020. I believe if there was something that I would do all over again, I believe I would start the pilot program with asking for a donation in the beginning. So even if it was $1 or just recommended, I think that I would do that. So that way your target population isn't feeling like it was free for the first 3 months. It was free for the next 3 months, but then, at 6 months now we're charging $4, and why? Where I feel as if we would have just put something, and some individuals were amazing and they will put more money in the drop slot than they need to, but others were more of, oh, well, this was a bait and switch. And I did not want them to feel like that. So something, hindsight, I think that that's something that we could have done. And also I think that hindsight, being that we were such in a rural area, getting out those PSAs on the radio to reach even further out and get more people involved would have been a great asset for us in the beginning.
Great, thank you. Next question, how did you determine what route the bus would take and where it would stop?
Oh, this is a good one. So Route Match is what we use. And it is a $40 a month subscription. And if you don't have a lot of stops, then it's a great subscription to use. We decided to use the Route Match software to do this. And it's basically, you can put in where your starting point is, where your ending point is, and it maps out the best route. So if you already know that you have some paratransit that you need to pick up along the way, it will map out GPS wise exactly where you're going to go. So you can either use it in real time on your cell phone, which over here we don't have a lot of service out in the reservation. So we were also able to use it as you can print out your routes. And what we did was we asked for 72-hour in advance bookings, and that would allow our receptionist and myself to book these and plan the routes.
Could you talk about your partnership with the food bank a little bit?
Oh, yes. Food bank partnership was wonderful. They started seeing us come over more and more. You know, Big Bertha's kind of hard to miss. And they started seeing us come over more and more to help out the community and drop off more of their elderly. And I actually didn't know at the time, but they do have an elderly program for elders 60 plus for their senior boxes, food boxes. And the seniors were going in there and telling them, oh, hey, do you know that we get to come more than once a week now? And that just kind of grew from there. Partnership, we are now the sole partnership for San Juan County. So we're able to go to Echo Food Bank and take the seniors there to get their boxes and then back home. So instead of one time a week, they get to go 2 times a week. Instead of spreading out that food box for a whole month, 1 week's worth of food for 1 month is what some individuals were doing. And we've been able to have them go twice a week for 4 weeks at a time.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Great. So still a few more questions in the chat, but definitely encourage everyone participating on the webinar. Please ask Brianna, she's a wealth of knowledge. So any questions that you have, I really encourage you to get them out to her today. So next question, you kind of touched a little bit on this a little bit already, but the question was, I understand that you use radio ads to promote the rides. Why did you choose to use radio?
So the radio ad PSAs were really because we were able to reach locations that were further out, but still within where our target wanted to be, still within San Juan County, but the areas where they may not come into the chapter houses but once a month. And they may have a doctor's visit that's coming up and they can't get there because their family members didn't have the time to take off that day to get them to that appointment. So they didn't see it in time. With these ads going out on the air, they were able to reach more people quickly, and they were able to put out our name and our number and then get them to call us, and then we can give them the whole spiel of what we're doing and what our cost is. And also caretakers were listening to this radio, and they were calling in to say, what is this? Is it truly free? Can you really pick us up from 70 miles away for $4? So it was amazing, really, for the radio. And I wish, hindsight, that we would have done that sooner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your program really implemented a lot of great approaches to get the word out and to get the ridership up. Speaking of that, our next question says, it was great to add native Navajo speakers and dispatchers who speak Spanish. How important do you believe this was to reaching your target population?
I believe that this was probably about 80% one of the reasons why we flourished. Having someone who speaks the native language to the reservation was something that we had a challenge with in the pilot, getting translators out there. And when we finally opened up and were able to have those translators have the receptionists answer those questions and speak in the native tongue as well as Spanish speaking, we were able to open up a whole new demographic, a whole new window of travelers who, for the most part, felt like they had nobody to talk with. and nobody could answer their questions when they would call the city line, for instance. If you were to do 411, it's only English speaking, and then they'll call you back with an interpreter. For us, it was, we will get your answers now, we will set you up for a ride now, and we will get you to your location when you need to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So next question, I'm going to kind of ask a question that's kind of related to that. So someone asked, how close was the nearest public transit?
Well, it depends where you were coming from. The closest public transit is in Farmington, and it is solely in the city of Farmington. That's the Red Apple Transit. Navajo Transit, there is a transit solution. It runs very sporadically, I should say. Some days it doesn't come when it should. It could be hours, 3 or 4 hours at a time late. It is not something that a lot of people recommend or think highly of out here in the rural population. But there is something, and it only travels once in the AM and once in the evening when it does, leaving those individuals in town for 12 hours at a time. So if you have a visit at, let's say, 10 a.m. at the VA clinic, you're going to take that bus that gets you and drops you off at 7:45 in the morning. Then you have to find your way to the VA clinic, take your appointment for the hour, and now you're in town from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. when the next pickup comes to take you home. For some people on limited income, there's not a lot to do besides sit at the bus stop where you're going to be for the next 5 to 6 hours for pickup.
Yeah. Another question along the lines of the actual trip. Someone wanted to know how long was the average trip in terms of how long in terms of time. You a little bit covered that, but and also in miles.
Okay, so an average trip for us, let's just say from our longest point is about 70 miles away. So that's just over an hour. An average trip for us from start to end is about an hour and a half one way. And about 70 to roughly 80 miles, depending on when you're on the Navajo Nation, it's not straight roads. So there's a lot of bends to get to where you need to pick somebody up. Chapter house wise, there are a lot of, they're not right off the highway. So you have to drive in to get into these locations. So trip wise, this is why we start so early. Picking up at 7 o'clock means that we have to be on that road sometimes by 5:30 in the morning, and get those going. We do have 2 drivers, 12-hour shifts, and we try and accommodate everybody so that if you have an 8 a.m. appointment, we will get you there by 8 a.m. in town.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, wow. Another question, would the larger companies in town be willing to contribute more to the transit program since it brings customers to their stores?
We are actually talking with the larger companies in town, the grocery stores. Once COVID hit and they started noticing that there was a need for our elderly population, people with disabilities, because of the age bracket, they opened up certain times and certain hours of the day that they would let them shop by themselves. So we took advantage of that. We've reached out to a lot of the larger chain companies, and a lot of those are, it's the corporate. So we're still waiting to hear back for funding and or, we've also asked that we can bring them out. Smith's has a gas station there. So we're in talks of talking with Smith's to see if we could get a donation for gas to be able to fill up the tank. And that's wonderful. I'm willing to take anything.
Wonderful. I'm going to come on a couple of questions. One of them, someone asked, were participants able to bring a companion on their trip? And then how much did each of the trips cost? Not the donation piece, but I'm assuming how much did the trips cost for you?
Okay, so you are allowed to bring a companion as long as they're 18 and above. Reason for that is we don't have a lot of child restraints to bring children on board. And there was just a lot of, grocery stops and things like that we didn't necessarily need that. So companions were allowed. They were not charged to come on. It was just a part. And let me see. And what was the second half of that one?
How
Sorry.
much did each trip cost?
Oh, to us. Okay. So nominally each trip to us was about, I believe about $5.50 is what we averaged it at after cost. So Big Bertha's, obviously the tank cost, we did, so the mileage, and then we also did depreciation of value. So, you know, that adds in making sure that you have money set aside for, you know, if you pop a tire, if you hit a animal on the road, which we have done, things like that, incidentals. So that $8 donation is actually, it rolls into all of that to play. So we actually break out even at that point.
Okay. All right. So we're at the top of the hour. I'm going to ask this one final question, and then we'll go ahead and close out. If we need to follow up with Brianna with any additional questions, I'm sure she'll be happy to send a response via email me and get that out. But there was one question about serving in the remote areas. How have you been able to get this scattered community to support the transportation program?
Well, I believe that visiting each and every chapter house was a huge one for us. Going out there and letting them know what we're doing, speaking with the elders, letting them know that we were really there to help, that we weren't going anywhere. So if you have a provider that has driven you for the last 2 years, why give that up for us if we're going to be a fly-by-night type of place? We wanted them to know that we were going to be around for the long haul and to help them. And speaking, like I said, to each chapter house, speaking to each community leader, and letting them know in outreach that we were there, I think really helped to get us the support that we needed.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Brianna, for your time and for all of the wonderful work you did with the grant project and even beyond with all of the wonderful achievements that's been going on in the Farmington area. To everyone participating, as a reminder, the slides and the recording will go out before the end of the week. And also we'll be sending out a very short evaluation. If you can please take some time to fill that out, we would greatly appreciate that. Well, without further delay, this is our time, and we wish everyone a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Take care.